equal chances. And the council comes together every year and unites and makes sure that that is also done. Well, last year with the Make-A-Wish Foundation, when you raised 1 crore, and so many young lives were touched, so many smiles were distributed, so much happiness was given to lives which were unfortunately just dealt a very short hand.
In GJPBC's endeavor to put together all concerted efforts, German Jewelry National Relief Foundation, GJNRF, was set up in the year 1999. Year on year, GJNRF is working towards providing relief to victims of calamity, war, and terror in every possible way, thereby serving society and making a huge difference in their lives with new commitments and promises.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so very much for today. It's a very special day for us. Praveen Bhai, thank you. That was a lovely speech. Russell, I don't know where you're sitting. Thank you very, very much. Mr. Kleber, thank you for your very kind words. Sen, who I've not actually met, but thank you very much. And of course, Sachin Jain. Thanks to you, thanks to Biryani, who introduced us. So, I really, really like the name for today's evening, Jewelers of Hope. I think it's beautiful. You know, when we first started thinking about this dream of ours and how we were going to make it happen, we actually asked ourselves, what is poverty? And the answer we came up with after almost 6 months of debating and talking to people is that poverty is really an absence of hope. I think it was May 2012. We did 1 year of research and study where we traveled the length and the breadth of the country, met amazing people, really amazing people, studied. We went to Bangladesh, met Brack. I don't know if you've heard of them, Sir Faisal. For the first time in my life, I was really starstruck. I mean, I have the most amazing Dia Mirza here. And I mean, but just to be honest, I've never asked a film star for a photograph with them. But when I met Sir Faisal, I said, "Sir, can I please have a photograph with you?" Because that man has single-handedly, along with another gentleman whom you've heard of, Grameen Bank, transformed the indices of a whole nation. And from that visit came a huge inspiration to both Ronnie and me that really it can be done. People can be lifted out of poverty permanently. But I think being maybe a little foolish, maybe a little stupid, and many people did call us crazy. I remember this 4 years ago. Today they tell us it's the only way to do it. We told them that we talked about it to a lot of our friends, and we decided to create a model of development with a 360-degree approach, which means there is no silver bullet to removing poverty. There is no one thing. If you say, I'll do this one thing, I'll build this one toilet, or this water, or this education, or this nutrition, or this health, or this livelihood, or this agriculture, this one thing that will remove people from poverty, it won't happen. It won't happen. If you examine your own lives and that of your children, what would you give up? Would you give up their education? Would you give up health? A livelihood for yourselves? Water in your homes? Toilet in your home? You wouldn't give up anything. So we decided to create a very unique model, which is the 360-degree model of development. We call it the inside-out model of development. And we embarked on this journey 3 years ago, made from very, very small beginnings, where our community was only 39,000 people. Today, I'm very happy to tell you that it is just under 5 lakh people. We work in 2,000 villages. Thank you. 360 GPs. And as Gaurav said, we have 1,600 people, of which 1,300 are community volunteers. I don't know if you can see this lady over here in the white coat and the other one in the white coat. So we have 1,000 of them. We have another, about almost 500 agricultural volunteers.
Could Ronnie and Zarina please take a seat, and then we can just have a little chat. Yes, we will, in just a moment.
So I just want to say a few words, actually. And,
yes.
I think Zaina said most of it, but I, again, want to thank everyone for here. Praveen bhai, thank you very much for your very kind words. Russell, for having us. De Beers, thank you for everything and your contribution. I know you're celebrating your 50th anniversary, but I remember a little over 36 years ago, when I was much, much younger, my first tryst came with the Gem and Jewelry Export Promotion Council, because I was invited to host a fashion show with, at that time, all the beautiful ladies. And it was my first overseas trip ever to Singapore. I'd never traveled abroad. And suddenly I was invited by Jeannie Navroji, who at that time was choreographing for the Gem and Jewelry Export Promotion Council. And it was a thrilling experience. So to come back and see the logo evolve since the last 36 years, it brings me back with a lot of nostalgic memories. And the last thing maybe I'd like to just share, and Zaina has spoken a lot about Swades, and I think everyone is here. We all discuss philanthropy in a very broad sense, and sometimes it does frustrate me that there is a perception that there isn't so much of it going around in India, and there's always a question mark as to why aren't we doing more. And I can tell you in the 6 to 9 months that we did and met people across India, there is an incredible amount of sweat equity and an incredible amount of people doing some great work. And if the United States contributes 2% of their GDP, and we are guilty of only contributing 0.2% of our GDP, I don't think we need to look down on that, because if you add the sweat equity, we cross that 2% of GDP. And I think most of the developing nations, when they do that, it's mostly for educational institutions and many others. Many of them, personally, from my point of view, may not even need some of those grants that actually go to them. So I think we need to be a very proud nation to the fact that there is a fair amount of incredible work that goes on here. And the last I would like to urge everyone here is that in India, as compared to in most other places, the challenge here is not about cutting a check. I think it needs manpower and the brain capital that this room represents and many of us represent. And I think it needs as much of your time. And even if you give 10% of your time and 0.01% of your wealth, it'll make an incredible difference, because the challenges for India to solve the problems are very unique. And I don't think today we have the mature enough foundations and NGOs at that scale to be able to take it there. And we need the brain power of corporate India to actually contribute in an intelligent manner, because there are lots of problems to be solved, and unless we're on the ground, we don't know how to solve them. And I think that's just my sort of appeal to everyone, that that's the next level of some sense of participation of sweat equity outside of their financial contribution. But again, thank you, Gem and Jewelry and Export Promotion Council, for having us here and for this generous donation. Thank you.
Well, it's really interesting that 36 years ago, they were the first ones to take you out of the country, and today they're giving you something to keep you in country for longer, right? Just to work even deeper in the country. But to both of you, the question that I ask is, and there's something so interesting that you said, that when you were starting out, the quote I thought of, or the line that I thought of is, first they laugh at you, then they call you crazy, and then they follow you. Have you noticed that happening? Have you noticed in the last few years that the ones who thought that this dream was absolutely ludicrous are now on board and behind you?
Well, I think the main thing was how we wanted to do it. I think what really everyone laughed at us a lot and really did call us crazy, actually, are now saying this is the only way to do it, which is the 360-degree model. And I think that is actually, honestly, it's really hard. It's really tough. And it's a struggle. Almost every single day we have huge problems.
I've known her as an actress, and a beauty queen, but I don't call her a beauty queen. I call her a power princess because she's harnessing all her power for social good now. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the wonderful Mirza.
So I have to tell you something. No, Dia, you tell. Okay, I'll tell you. So Dia just told me that her very first assignment, one of her earliest assignments when she was 17 years old, was for De Beers. So there you go. Yeah.
That was like 5 years ago, right? 6.
I love you, Gaurav.
We're old friends. I mean, while doing social good, Dia, more than Dia, actually, Dia's cook has done a lot of social good for me as well. We've been neighbors for a long time, and when I was young and kitchenless in Mumbai, her cook used to make lovely dosas for us. So,
You know, growing up, there's always a sense of participation one would like to feel. I mean, your school encourages you, and then your college does. At home, I was encouraged, and I always felt a great sense of happiness every time I came back after doing something that I knew was making a difference in somebody's life. And I would often wonder, when does that stop? And then you grow older and you realize it stops when you become busy with yourself and expanding your own life ambitions and going on to doing the very many things that you want to do, the goals you want to achieve. And somewhere along that process of that participation and that fantastic feeling that one gets in participating with more people than just yourself starts disappearing. And it's very interesting how, despite great successes, there is a kind of an emptiness that looms. It just kind of takes over. And I think what Ronnie and Zarina are examples of are individuals who grew. Always looking for is a great story, right, to leave behind. And I think that those stories are changing every day. They're becoming more about we and less about I.
fantastic. And you are leaving 1 million stories behind, and 1 million stories every 5 years. And that's something I think that should inspire and motivate everybody. And Ronnie, like you rightfully said, it's not just about giving money, it's also about giving time. It's sweat equity and being there. Dia.
One thing I quickly want to add,
Sure.
because they both spoke about their volunteer group, and that's something that I find is so remarkable, because there are people from cities, urban centers, and of course rural centers, who are part of Swadesh because they want to give, they want to share their skills. You know, they're actually out there on the ground doing work because they believe that sharing their skills is going to impact change, and that's a huge thing.
Ladies, a big round of applause, please, for Zarina, Ronnie, and Dia. Praveen bhai, can I request you to please stay on stage for just a moment? Praveen bhai, if I could just request you to stay on stage.
No, it's not.